Hello, and thank you for joining me on my channel today. I thought that I would do a little bit of a sit-down video and talk about how to own a horse frugally, or as frugal as possible. My name is Candace, and I own a horse here in the city of Los Angeles, California, so one of the most expensive areas to probably live in the United States. So I've definitely had to be frugal with my horse ownership and adjust a few things in order to afford my horse, but horseback riding and horses have been part of my life, and I work as a body worker and now as a trainer, so it is something that is very important to me. So yeah, that's why I wanted to be frugal, because I wanted to be able to live in the city for my acting work, but also to have my passion and my horse. So yeah, that is why I am here and why I want to talk about this. Right off the bat, when you are looking at purchasing a horse, I would suggest to do it financially stably. So if you don't have regular employment or regular income coming in, make sure you take care of yourself first. I also say this with actors, like there's no point in starving yourself to own a horse. Take care of yourself first, get some stable income coming in, and then you can go ahead and assess how you're going to go and purchase your horse. When you are looking at purchasing a horse, I think choosing your horse is a really important component to owning a horse frugally. So for example, I see a lot of people that go, okay, well this horse is cheap, therefore I'm going to buy it, and then that's going to save me money. They can end up becoming a cost to you because they might have health issues, injuries. Make sure you do your homework. Make sure that you're figuring out what the horse has. Every horse has kind of their little issues behaviorally or physically, but make sure there's something that you can handle, because again, you're going to have to spend that money eventually on either rehab, vet bills, or training costs. It's also really important that when you are looking at buying a horse to save up some money for purchasing and also save up money for a cushion, for an emergency fund, for vet bills. Make sure that you're doing your research to find out how much it costs to board in your area if you're boarding, how much it costs to keep your horses at home. Just do a lot of homework in the initial phases, so that way you're not in too deep over your head once you do actually get your horse. As far as frugally buying a horse, I won't go too deep into it because I can maybe make another video on that, but again, research is going to be your best option. You can go through rescues, you can go through like adopting a horse, you can go through private party sales, but also again, make sure you're doing your homework and make sure that you're really getting a good idea of the horse that you're buying and if they are at your level. Because again, you're going to be having to pay for that again if you're buying a horse that's way out of your comfort level of training. If you don't feel safe being with that horse alone at a ranch by yourself with no help, that's going to be an additional cost in training down the line. So again, if that's like something that you're like, I need this horse to be super safe, try to do as best homework as you can when you're initially buying a horse. One of your main expenses monthly is going to be your boarding expense, if you're boarding. Again, I don't have experience keeping horses at home because I'm in California and it's way too much money to do that. There are some ways that you can keep your boarding costs low. So typically, in California right now, what's going on, because the hay prices are fluctuating, there's usually like a base rate, and then like you have to either buy your own hay or you have to pay an additional fee like that changes monthly depending on the hay prices. So check into your area, call boarding barns or email them and see how much they are. Different facilities are going to have different rates and different add-ons and etc. Also keep in mind that if you're not able to be at your horse like 24/7, that if they need supplements or turnout, then, which they should be getting turnout, if they're in stall, make sure that you are adding those in as well. There's different kinds of board. So there's like full board, which is like everything's taken care of, and a lot of barns in my area are like that. There's some partial board where you might, take some days where you muck or you feed or whatever for your horse. And then there's self-care board, which I often don't find very often in my particular area. I think in urban areas, it's mostly just full care board. However, if you can find barns that maybe are on like outer rims of the city, if you're in an urban area or if you're near a rural area, you might be able to find some self-care boarding. Just make sure that you have the time and the effort and energy to do that, but you can also maybe supplement with turning some horses out when you're at the barn, or just working with the barn owner to help out with certain things to maybe take some load off of them. Like just see if there's something that you can work out, kind of barter to get a little bit of a discount on your board. The biggest things that I can suggest as far as boarding is to go and find facilities that are less known. The boarding barn that I am at currently doesn't even have a website. Like it's just like, it's low key. It was word of mouth. I found it through my mentor, and that's where I'm at now. So the horse world is definitely, there's a lot of people that are just not online. So try to make connections within the horse world if you can, to find those little barns that are going to be a little bit cheaper. They're not going to be like the super glitzy, fancy, high-end barns that have a beautiful website, because a beautiful website costs money and they're getting that through their boarding rights. So try to find barns that are a little bit more low-key, barns that are not competitive. You don't want a barn that's going to be with a trainer, because you're going to have to pay training fee, and you're going to have to pay board on top of that. And usually they're going to tack on turnouts and supplements and all that too. So if you want to do frugal horsemanship, you're going to want to find a barn that is a little bit more flexible, unless that's something that you want to do, which is competition, which if you're doing that and you're at a competitive barn, you're probably not watching this video and you have the funds to fund your competitive training. So try to find a barn that is a little bit more low-key, a little bit more like everyone's kind of doing their thing. It's a little bit more of like a trail, all-around kind of barn, leisure barn. You want to be more at those kinds of barns. The next ongoing monthly expense that you're going to have is your feed. So this could either be tied into your board, or it can be an add-on cost. In California, again, we don't have pasture. It's all dry lot. If you're on there, if you can get pasture, like pasture dry lot boarding, it's not actually pasture, it's just dry lots. However, if you can get pasture boarding, you can save some money with that. Proper nutrition for a horse is very important. However, I find that people can really oversupplement the horses, and you'll find this a lot at the kind of higher end barns, where they're getting like every supplement you can ever imagine to keep everything glossy and nice and fancy. Your horse, if you're going to do this frugally, is going to be a little bit more on the natural diet. They're going to be just kind of eating their hay. If they need a supplement for any health conditions, of course, give that to them. But overall, like, you're going to keep their diet pretty simple. Obviously, make sure they're getting like their supplement, like their minerals, like, because also there's some, I'm not going to go into diet because it's going to go way, that would be an entire 3-hour long conversation. But just make sure your horse is getting the proper nutrition. But again, you don't need to over supplement them. I find that happens a lot at the higher end barns. Try to see if you can buy in bulk. At feed stores, try to shop around, see what kind of feed you can get. If you are paying for your own hay, shop around with hay people and see if you can make a deal. As far as like tack and equipment goes, try to find things that are used. Try to find things that are like on Facebook groups. Obviously, you want a saddle that fits your horse. You want tack that's comfortable for you and your horse. But we're not going to be buying new things. We're not going to be buying a lot of things. You're not going to have like every halter you could ever imagine in every color. You don't need to buy the fanciest things to own a horse. You can actually own a horse on used tack and the world will be safe. You can also find equipment at tack sales. Usually barns will have these, barns that are moving or they're just trying to get rid of stuff. You can find really good deals on those. You can also go onto Facebook groups. They also have good deals. Use tack online as well. So just look around, shop around, and again, try to buy as used as possible. For healthcare and veterinary costs, so your horse is going to have some veterinary needs. They're going to have some healthcare costs. This is also going to be where I'm going to include like farrier visits. Again, this can kind of go back to when you're buying your horse. If you can get a horse who is barefoot or can go barefoot or has good feet, that will save you money because you're going to be getting trims instead of a full or half set of shoes. Having regular vet visits for your like checkups is going to help kind of determine if there's anything going on with your horse before it becomes a serious issue. You can also get some insurance. I budgeted insurance for my horse in particular, just in case there's any sort of accident. I like to have it. It's something that was important to me. So if that's something that's important to you, just make sure that you budget that into your horse ownership budget. Just make sure that you're staying on top of any health conditions that your horse has so that you're not going to have an emergency down the line where you have to go to the hospital. So for training or lessons, try to be honest with yourself about what your ability is and what kind of horse you can take on. Again, that's going to save you money in training costs down the line. I have kind of a personal theory that every horse is kind of a project horse, because I think every horse comes with its problems and you don't know what they are really until they show up at your barn and they're not doing something or they're doing something new. So just keep that in mind. There are going to be some hiccups with your horse probably. You're going to want to find a trainer that is more of like a traveling trainer, or a trainer that is more low-key, not somebody that's going to force you to be in a program, just somebody that's going to help you when something comes up. If you are interested in lessons, try to find if your barn offers any sort of group lessons, or if you can do, again, some sort of work trade kind of situation. This is all assuming you have the time to do that as well. So if you are a full-time worker and you don't have the time to do this, just factor that in as well. You can also do some DIY training, kind of train yourself to be a trainer. I've done a lot of that. Find some people that you like online. A couple that I recommend based on my approach is like Warwick, Schiller. There's the Connection Training Club, and there is Milestone Equestrian. She has a channel here on YouTube. She does, those two are positive reinforcement. Warwick Schiller does like the attuned approach. And then there is also like Shawna Karrasch for positive reinforcement training. So just try to find trainers that you enjoy that maybe have online programs. The Tao of Horsemanship is another one that I like. I'll put all the ones that I like down below. But just, you know, kind of try to like DIY it, play around with your horse. Again, the more training your horse is going to need that's above your ability, the more you're going to need outside help. Definitely get to know your community. So horses are so much about community. Especially if you want to be frugal. Get to know your other owners that are at the barn, get to know your barn owner, people that work there, because these are all people that are going to be able to help you if you're like out of town and you need help. There's a lot of trading that goes on in barns, especially when they're like the leisurely, casual barn. There's a lot of help that they are willing to provide, and you know you can help them as well. So yeah, if anything comes up with your horse and they need, you know, something, some people live close by so they can just go pop in if you're not close by to your barn. So yeah, just try to foster a community and network with your fellow barn people, maybe people that are in the community. Usually when there's one barn, there's other barns in the area as well. There's also Facebook groups that you can join that have, you know, just look up your area and like horsemanship or equine or whatever, and you can find like this whole network of people. And that's also a place where you can find tack, you can find events. I actually boarded a barn that's really close to a showing barn where they host shows, like little local shows. And I was like, well, I could trail ride her to the show and then we could show if that is the thing. So, and the board is way cheaper at my barn than the show barn. So, I mean, if that's something that is interest of you, maybe find a show barn that's nearby that has schooling shows or shows where you can like walk in or trailer in, and then board at a barn that's cheaper down the road. And then there you go. You can show and you're also boarding pretty cheap. A side note with cheap, affordable boarding is to make sure it's quality first. Yes, I'm saying like you don't need to go to the fanciest barn, but also there are a lot of shoddy barns that are not very good. They're not feeding their horses properly. They're not like they're, you know, just make sure that they're getting fresh food, fresh water. They're getting turnout. They have, you know, your horse is skinny when you go there. They're nice to your horse. If you're boarding at a facility, you're going to have, especially if you have people that are turning out your horse, you know, mucking, you want to make sure that the people that are working around your horse are good people, because they can undo training. They can undo emotional trauma healing. Alright, so I hope these tips help you out, and thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully you can give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more of these kinds of videos, and I will see you in my next video.